classes start again sometime in July or August. So tell your friends. I mean, the group formally starts, but individual meetings. And some of you still, yeah, you've done all your sacraments, but if you need private, meetings, I mean, I'm open. People have done that. Cry on my shoulder, and I can cry on your shoulder. Let's do that. Yeah, certainly the returning Catholics and come. Yes. That's what I love what I do. It's so intense. I think because Lent and towards Easter, they kind of like, I think it's God really calling them, this season of repentance and renewal and all that. I'm telling you, Jen, I have these appointments, boom, boom, boom. It's mostly always in the evenings too. I've had some during the day for those who, some schedules are so full. But I just want to let you know, give me a couple of choices as far as your time, your choices, and then I'll work with your schedule. Anything at all. Anything at all we can talk about. Just let me know. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and the Lord. We pray for everyone that's not here for one reason or another, or those who are still on their way. We certainly pray for all those who are looking at the Catholic Church right now and wondering, all the scandals and all that, but they're still wondering, why is it that the Church, Catholic Church, is the only one that is standing against all these things in the culture? And why is it that the Catholic Church is always the one that's heavily persecuted around the world? So we do put everything in God's hands, and we put our total trust in Him. Especially the protection of all our loved ones, all our classmates, and all our family members, especially those who are ill or dealing with some kind of issue or trouble or anxiety. Make thanksgiving for all the graces and blessings. Our Father who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Last week, I gave you a ton of handouts. Did you read those handouts? No. If not, did you want to discuss them today? Or maybe you're scared, right? I have so many handouts, and they were all small font, and they were all highlighted. And yeah, if you weren't here last week, I have all of them here. I have all of them here. They're a copy of
That is scary.
It is scary. Yeah. That's a copy of each of these. Oh, how about that one? I get everything. You don't want to be left out.
Just 2 pages.
Oh, wait, no, that's mine. That's my lesson.
Give me your note.
Did you get this one? Because last week, I kind of saturated you with the most controversial teaching of the church and the biggest topics in the culture right now. Let's start with this. This is from actually the Knights of Columbus. As you know, it's the biggest worldwide fraternity of men in the Catholic Church.
Or I don't think I got that one.
If you were absent last week, I have all the handouts. Yeah, no. So the Knights of Columbus put this list out. Want to get all their handouts? One of these. And you see the acronym there? FACES. The 5 non-negotiables. FACES. F-A-C-E-S. Okay, so check this out. Did you get this, Laura? Yeah. Okay, this one is FACES. Get the handouts?
Oh, for this week?
Last week.
Oh, last week.
Okay. Okay, so FACES, number 1, fetal stem cell research. We established last week that the Catholic Church is not against stem cell research. The Catholic Church is against embryonic stem cell research, okay? Because that involves killing the embryo. They test several, and then they take whatever they need to take, you know, for the stem cells, but it dies. The cells die. That is a fetal stem cell. They get it from where? The fetus. Okay. So fetal stem cell research. Human embryos are human beings. Conception start. The whole entire being, okay, starts where? At the moment of conception. You know, do you remember reading, this is recent, that at the moment of conception, this is science, okay, science, at that exact moment that the sperm enters the egg, that there's a light, a spark. Did you read this? It was very recent. It had to be less than 6 months. There's an actual light, there's a spark. Spark of light. It's like electricity right there. You know, it happened. And at that moment, okay, that is the creation, that is the beginning of a human being. Respect for the dignity of human being excludes all experimental manipulation or exploitation of the human embryo. Adult stem cells, okay, that is approved by the church. Adult, anything that's not from the fetus. You know, umbilical cord is used a lot. Cells from the umbilical cord, they think that stem cells, it's considered adult, okay? So, adult stem cells can be obtained without doing harm to the adults, and use of an infant umbilical cord after birth is feasible and morally acceptable. There is no medical argument in favor of using fetal stem cells because, remember what we said? There has been zero cures or anything, no advantages in using the fetal stem cell. Whereas adult stem cells, if you've seen the list, several pages of all the diseases, all the medical problems that have been solved or helped by using adult stem cells. So you need to remember this because that's a very common argument that you will hear. The church is against science. The church is against stem cell research. You go correction against embryonic stem cells, meaning fetal cells. Adult stem cells, go for it. It has been used and has many cures. I have to find that list that, you know, Lynn compiled for me, but it's probably easy to look for a current list of all the diseases that have been helped using adult stem cells. Many. And I don't know why they keep insisting on using fetal stem cells, and therefore they promote abortion because that's where you get the cells from the fetus. Okay. So, abortion. Obviously, that's church teaches that regarding a law permitting abortions, it is never licit to obey it. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's good. Okay? Or to take part in propaganda campaign in favor of such a law or to vote for it. If you go for it, you are, you know, complicit. materially or immaterially, remotely or distantly. You know, if we have so many politicians that have now public, the most recent obviously is, you know, about a baby being born, a botched abortion, the baby is alive, they take it out, put it somewhere comfortable so it could just die slowly. They are not going to revive it, they're not going to treat the baby because the main purpose was to abort the baby. But if it somehow survives, they take it out, make it comfortable until it just dies. Whereas they're supposed to have taken an oath to save life, to heal. But that's, okay, that's permitted, it's flaunted, it's not even secret anymore. They're proud. They're proud that they support it. And that would be mortal sin, okay? That would be, one time we said, in one of these classes right in this room, we said that somebody who has been complicit in any way, now that you know, maybe you didn't know before, but now that you know, and you still hold the same mindset, you still hold the same conviction, you need to go to confession. First of all, you need to repent, because that's one requirement of a good confession, is true, sincere sorrow. Don't go because we told you. You go because you're sorry. You do your penance. You confess it, that he can hear it, the priest can hear it, and then you resolve not to sin again. But there is healing. We have big groups, you know, the Silent No More group. It's for all those who have committed abortion. It's not just for the women. It's for the boyfriends, the husbands, you know, everyone. It's Silent No More. These are post-abortive women who have had the experience, have repented, and are now the most vocal women and men. They hold their signs. The men are saying, I regret my lost fatherhood, or something like that. You know, abortion hurts women. You know, one dead, one wounded. The woman is wounded. She is affected emotionally, psychologically, and it even shows physically the symptoms. It takes about 15 years or longer for post-abortion syndrome to show up. They're wondering why they have all these symptoms and why they have all these problems. You know, and go to doctors, they can't find out what's wrong. I'm still this, I'm still depressed, etc., etc., etc. They dig deeper, and guess where the source is? They had an abortion in the past. Because anytime you mess with the natural process of your body and the way you were created as man and woman, anytime you mess with the original design of the intelligent designer, the creator, of why he made this body, why these parts are there, what is your function, what is his plan. Anytime you mess around with that, the symptom, they're gonna show up somewhere. It is abnormal. It is not your choice. It is not your body. It lives, the baby lives in your body temporarily, 9 months at the most. A few days overdue, some cases, right? After that, you know, it is viable even several months before 9 months, you know. They are viable. We've had cases in this room. The baby was what, 1.5 pounds or less than a pound. It was so small, it was so tiny. But the baby survives. They're viable with the help of technology, obviously. But, you know, now it's a case where the baby is full term or botched abortion, baby's alive, moving, breathing, and then they just leave it to die because the purpose was to abort it. But if it's alive, well, let's just leave it to die. I'm sorry. Anyways, please, healing is available. Healing. That's what the church is saying. We go, well, we need to, Mother Teresa, you know, that we should kill, I forgot the quote, that we should have to kill a baby in order to support our lifestyle.
It is a poverty.
It's a poverty.
It's a poverty that a child must
Die.
so that you can have your lifestyle.
Your lifestyle. You know, will not do that to the turtles, right? We will not do that to a species of birds that are going to be extinct if we don't do it, right? In Florida, was it that article where there's signs in the beach that you cannot violate, you cannot damage the eggs of turtles? How about the human egg? How about the human embryo? It's okay. It's okay to kill our species. It's not okay to kill this animal or this bird or this fish, because we need to protect them. How about our own species? Cloning, attempts for obtaining a human being without any connection with sexuality through twin fusion or cloning are to be considered contrary to the moral law, since they are in opposition to the dignity both of human procreation and marital union. Human cloning promotes a form of homicide because the rejected or unsuccessful clones are destroyed, yet each clone is a human being. It's forcing the hand of God because he has to put a soul in there if it is to be alive. A soul it's what makes you alive. The animating force of a body is the soul. Plants have souls, but they're called the animals have souls. They're called sensitive souls. The plants are vegetative, or there's another term. But because if it's the animating force that keeps them alive, once a plant dies, its soul dies. Once an animal dies, the soul dies. Once a man or woman, a person is dead, the soul lives. The soul lives. A human soul lives forever. That is what gave us, one of his qualities, an immortal soul. Yes, we have a beginning, but we don't have an end, immortality. This one has an end, but remember the teaching of the church at the last day. This one, even if it was created, even if it was centuries ago, it's buried, it's dead, it's decayed, right? At the second coming, this body that's been in there for centuries, God has no problem reconstituting it and resurrecting it and reuniting the soul and the body together at the second coming. Okay? It remains that you are now immortal. The plant and the animal, no. Of course, there was a question. Well, is it going to be heaven if my dog isn't there or my cat isn't there? I can't answer that. I've never been there and back. But do you think the Lord will not give you everything that will make you happy in heaven? Because it's total happiness, right? If you think if the Lord knows what makes you happy, he made you, right? If he thinks that will make you happy, of course you'll have your dog. But on the other side, do you really need a dog if you have God right there who is total, complete happiness, all fulfilling? We keep thinking like we should, humanly, right? Like humans. I'm not going to be happy if my beloved pet isn't there, right? Or all my pets since I was a child. I should have each one of them. God will give you a happiness that will not make you miss anybody or anything because you will be so fulfilled. Your cup will be overflowing. It was just your cup of happiness. I mean, I can't even describe it, right? No eye has seen, no ear has heard, nor has it entered the thoughts of man. What God has in store for those who love him. That's heaven. If you think you need your dog, he'll give it to you. But I'm saying you won't need your dog. You'll have God himself, the creator of dogs. Right? Like when people go, I go to the stars and, I read my horoscope so I know what I'm supposed to do today. And I go, man, don't look at the stars. Go to the one who made the stars. Isn't that better? Go to the one who made the stars, not just the stars. Besides, don't waste your time, all right? Euthanasia. I had my little hand up there. It was still lovely. Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Okay, euthanasia. Utilitarian idea, in our world today. If you're useless, you might as well die. You're not a productive citizen anymore. You might as well die. You're draining our resources. You're getting too expensive. You can't even remember me anymore, all your loved ones, you might as well die. That's the culture right now, is all utilitarian. Okay. What happened? I'm just saying it's very simple. When you were born, you were little, you were totally helpless. Your parents did everything. Feed you, clothe you, clean you up. Just remember that, okay? So now it's your turn to clean them up, house them, feed them. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Well, I'm busy, I have a career, etc., etc. Well, you have resources, you have help in order to, help grandma or grandpa or your parents, There is plenty of help, or check at least with your spiritual director, because these are very sensitive questions. There are concerns. I can't afford it. It's too expensive to put them in a home or to give them 24-hour medical care. It's very expensive. I don't know. But euthanasia, the ill or the elderly are killed out of a misplaced sense of compassion. That's a big argument. It's misplaced compassion. Let's end the suffering, right? Let's put them out of their misery. That's what we say when we have to put the animals down. Now we're thinking we should do that with the people, especially the ones that...
They're saying, let's play God. Let's decide
Exactly.
for ourselves when life begins
or when it ends. That's exactly it. But true compassion cannot include doing something intrinsically evil. When it's time, the body will tell you. I think I told you last time that you cannot withhold food and water. The church isn't saying, get all the machines hooked up, let's prolong the life. If the person's dead and only the machines are keeping the person alive. Those are called extraordinary means. For more explicit definition, you need to talk to the ethical board in the hospital, and you need to have your pastor there or the chaplain there, and you have all the medical information that you need. Because that is a tough decision to withdraw life support, to disconnect, right? But the body will tell you, even with food and water, and you're providing that, but if the body's rejecting those now, it's a good sign that it's dying. But it will go on its own. It will go on its own. Okay, I know you have to consult with the medical personnel and the hospital chaplain or your pastor. Okay. There. The last one is the hottest issue right now. Where's my handout on that one? We're going to talk about homosexuality. Did you read this, your homework?
Hey, put your headphones in.
Okay. This one is actually probably a year old. I think I gave this out last year. This is Father, who was it? Oh, Monsignor Pope. Have you heard him? Have you read him? I love it. And it's a letter to his parishioners. In recent years, homosexuality has been frequently in the news. It is a nationwide effort to give recognition to so-called gay marriage. Oh wait, don't stop that. Remember now is like, how many choices you have now for your gender? It was like 60 something. Just that? No, I heard something where they listed about 60 something. It's either 30 something or 60. How many?
Yeah, it's like 68 or something.
Oh my gosh. You have to decide now. And remember, they are letting They are letting 6-year-old kindergartners choose now and decide what they are. A 6, 7, 8, even 10-year-old can decide what their gender is nowadays. I'm telling you, it is so bad, it will make your blood boil, you know, if you don't pass out first. It's like, so it's not just same sex now. Now it's like you choose your gender, and they allow young ones to decide whether. And the parents sometimes are. They can't do anything. The parents have lost their rights because once the teacher finds out that this kid, and it's normal, right? When they're at that age, they are experimenting and they're wanting, but they have to grow out of it. But what happens is they're being told at that age, oh, if that's how you feel, then yeah, now they can advocate hormones and all the scientific procedures. You're making a child decide at that age. I'm telling you. Yes.
I was on YouTube a few weeks ago, and they had this show or something. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to see it yet, but it's called "I Want My Sex Back." Being that the people had gone through their transgender or whatever it was, now they're regretting that they did it, whether it was young age, older age, or whatever. But now they're like wanting to go back and they're like, so I was just reading the synopsis or whatever about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is crazy because you chose to do this, and then now, I don't know. It's so confusing.
It is because they go into it really confused and really convicted, obviously, but then once they have it done, okay, the principle is your gender doesn't change. Your appearance does, even, the externals does, because you can have all kinds of operations, but your basic DNA does not. I don't care how many gallons of hormones they pump into your body every week, because remember, they have to do these things regularly. They have to have those hormones, they have to have treatment.
The chromosomes.
I'm sorry?
You can't change the chromosomes.
No, you cannot. You cannot.
So we would be able to cure
Yeah.
all other diseases.
And so we have these that have now come out and are saying, I regretted it. And they went through all the expense. These things are not cheap. But once you start messing with their hormones, treating them with all these things while they're young, they're young and developing, just like the abortion that we discussed last week, the chemical contraceptives and stuff. Especially when they start young with contraception, they're messing up with their system. So they become sterile or they have all kinds of problems. Because especially when they're still developing, you're messing with the normal growth, the normal development of the human body, And at one time I read, now they have contraceptives for men. They tested it, but it's not working yet. Now men. Of course, when they said, okay, now women are getting all these contraceptives, now the men have to do something, and what did they resort to? Vasectomy. Now, I heard, for some of those that have found out the truth and they have chosen to reverse vasectomy, it was a very painful process, very painful process. Now, I want you to know, though, that the artificial types of contraception where the women have their tubes tied, or the church, after somebody repents and says, what can I do now? I've already had it done. The church does not require for reversals. To make that clear, the church does not require. Let's say a man had vasectomy, now they want to have more kids. Or maybe he's so repentant, what can I do? The church does not require reversal. Okay?
Why not?
It doesn't, because it's been done and you're repenting, obviously. Some have opted of their own free will to reverse.
Because in the marriage prep classes,
Yeah.
when lying with, as husband and wife,
Yeah.
you have to be open to life.
Open to life.
If you have a vasectomy, which is a completely reversible operation, you are not open to life, because you could be, and you're choosing not to be, regardless of how painful it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
it's interesting that the church doesn't
Yeah,
say like,
does
well,
not
if
require,
you
as
can't be
long as,
absolved.
yeah. That's the teaching. Does not, like the woman cannot have her tubes untied.
Right, now, that's not reversible, but the vasectomy is, well,
Yeah.
whether or not it takes or even is functional the first time
Yeah.
can be an issue, but
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
great.
think there's any.
I think the cases that I've read, because they cannot have any more babies because of the vasectomy, then they were given the option of adoption. If you wanted more, then you can adopt now. Because I think because of the side effects, the expense, but like I said, some men have opted, and they went on and had more children. So I think the question is, they don't require, but it's okay if you want to do it.
Yeah, it just seems like if
Yeah.
if you are repenting and your intention is to not put that border between
Yeah.
yourself and God in your marriage, then
Yeah.
the only course of action
Would be to reverse it, but
Right.
it's not feasible for a lot.
right, and I guess that.
think that's
it-
why. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
That's why the
Like you
teaching
said,
was,
it's very
yeah.
expensive and can be,
Yeah.
And it's like a medical procedure that is like invasive to your body. I don't think the church has any requirements for medical procedures that someone would ever have to do.
right, because it's
Yeah.
a sin to damage a healthy organ, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
keep it the same.
probably it,
Okay.
yeah. So anyways, and yeah, I mean, talk to your pastor, that's the best thing to do, because you can both discern what needs to be done. And I've read of some where they reversed it, but it didn't work either. They could not have kids either. But I guess with the conscience, with the guy's conscience, at least he could say that he tried. He can say that he tried.
Well, the thing is, I know, the procedure I understand, it costs about $8,000 to reverse.
reverse it?
Yes.
Wow.
8,000 to 100,000, depending on how much, 8,200, I'm sorry,
Oh.
$8,200 to reverse.
Yeah,
Usually the facilities aren't right in your local area.
yeah.
If there's one down in Tucson, you'd have to drive down there. It is a longer recovery time, it is very
Yeah.
painful,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always work.
Right.
It definitely doesn't.
They cannot
So-
guarantee it.
Yeah, I've got friends that have.
But that was explained to me, in those situations with the Catholic Church, when it's so situationally based, they're not gonna make a blanket rule and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm like, well, that makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
But I agree, absolutely,
Yeah,
if you could, you should.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that's what, I know of 2 cases where they did reverse, and they went on and had more children. But it was very painful, it was very expensive. But, the church as a mother, the church is very pastoral, looks at all kinds of situations. You will not allow, obviously, contraception and all that, but if it's been done, the woman's been sterilized and all that, if they've repented and now they're open to other ways, they're open to life in other ways, then, the church is very pastoral and will consider everything. The important thing is the repentance, and, okay, when it comes to this, the other argument that people already really push to you is, I was made this way. There's no basis, there's no genes, okay? There may be a tendency. The other thing is, hey, this could be your cross for life. You may have to deal with that tendency, that attraction to the same sex. You may have to deal with that for life. That could be your cross. I was talking to someone because they were really, really, it was hard to talk to them, but in the end I go, the church, again, has solutions, and it's mostly healing and counseling and support groups. The church has this group called Courage. It is a support group for those who have that type of cross, same sex. And big group, healed. They're all, living chaste lives. They have channeled their energies into something productive, working in the church, helping others. It's a support group because, the temptation is there, the tendency is there. But this is why it's important to know that you have a family that's there to help you. You have brothers and sisters. dealing with the same thing. They have the chaplains, they have the medical personnel that they need, okay? Because this, again, I said, this could be your cross for life. This could be something you will be dealing with until your deathbed. But the church has help. It's mainly, the main thing is you being able to control your passions. And it's not just on that attraction. Controlling your passions applies to all of us. Control your passion to have 10 more donuts. Control your attraction to, binge shopping. Control your attraction to that person whom you know is married. You know what I'm saying? Controlling your passions applies to each one of us, no matter what our tendencies are. That's the basic thing. Someone has to deal with, addiction, like shoplifting or drinking. If you treat the same-sex attraction as something like that, which you need to control, and you may need help. If you need professional help, it's available. It's available. First of all, I told this person I talked to, her divorce is final. When did I talk to her? And the moment she told me she got divorced, and we both started crying, etc., etc., and I told her between sobs, I said, you need another man in your life. And she looked at me and I quickly said, I meant Jesus Christ. Everyone will have their cross. Everyone will have their trials, big tribulation, big temptations. You just need to get to the person who can help you, the person of Jesus Christ, the Redeemer, the divine physician. Why is he called divine physician? Because you're going to need supernatural help. You need supernatural medicine. You need him. But he created doctors too, right? He created psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists. He created counselors. You need to get the help you need, but he is the ultimate divine physician. All the others don't work without him either anyway, right? None of the other things would work without him anyway. You had your hand up?
No, I was just gonna say the thing about it, when you talk about all alternative lifestyles, the best thing we can do as Catholics is to be properly Catholics, to be informed, because we have people from within, Father James Martin.
Yeah.
He's one of the big ones that's a big proponent of that, the ambiguity of irregular relationships, meaning not even just same-sex, but a man and a woman being able, or whether or not they're
Yeah.
to receive the Holy Eucharist and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where being catechized at this time is the most important thing. And that helps us be able to explain exactly what, as a Catholic, believes. I've been in a situation where someone says, you're against gays. I said, no. We're against being unchaste and celibate.
Yes.
Sex between marriage. We do not recognize marriage as being a man and man, or a woman and a woman. But the same sins that the same-sex couple is doing is the same thing, sex that the cohabitating heterosexual couples are doing.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that. And you're like, well, it's just kind of like, oh, I thought it was just against one group. No, we're not against. We pray for them.
Yeah, and remember that you are not condemning the person, you're condemning the sin. Just having that attraction is not a sin in itself. It's a tendency. It's when you act on it. It says here, second paragraph, third paragraph. A second point of clarification. It's important to note. It is the homosexual activity that is condemned, not all persons of homosexual orientation. In fact, it is a fact that some individuals are attracted. Why this is or how it comes to be is not fully understood, but nonetheless, simply a fact for some individuals. To be tempted to commit a certain sin does not make one evil or bad or even guilty for that temptation. Rather, it is to give way to the temptation and commit the sin that makes one a sinner. Does that make it clear for you? It's the activity. If you act on that temptation, I mean, we had this in the sin topic. Temptation itself is not a sin. It's when you commit it, becomes a sin. I told you temptation is the thing that makes you holy. When there's temptation, you say no to it, right? Wow, check that notch. You have just advanced one level. This is what makes you holy. If the Lord gives you this temptation, probably the same kind of temptation over and over and over, you keep saying no, you have just developed the virtue that is the antidote to that sin. So the Lord, by giving you this temptation over and over, has actually strengthened your muscles. Remember your weightlifting, your resistance? What built that muscle? The resistance. What built that virtue is a temptation that you kept saying no to. Temptation itself is not a sin. When you say no to it, you're becoming holy. When you say yes to it, you're committing the sin. That's when it becomes a sin. Okay.
When saying no to it, it's like the temptation is there, and the response is, oh no, Jesus does not want me to do that. And then you say no.
It's building up your resistance to that one. And how do you do that? You have to have a relationship with the Lord himself. You need to know the commandments. You remember that every sin is self-destructive. Now think about that. If every sin is self-destructive, you don't want to do, no matter how small it is. If that's the one that chips away, on your body, because you're self-destructing. That's what's chipping away. You don't want to do that. You don't want to start drinking poison, little by little, right? This is poisoning your system, your spiritual, your spirit, your soul. It's poisoning it. You're willingly doing it. There was a question where, why should I do that when my own doctor or the priest is doing it? Why should I listen to him, right? He has all these sins. Why should I listen to him? Well, very practical matter. Let's say you have a heart problem. You go to a cardiologist, but your own cardiologist, the expert in the land, the one that everyone looks to, he is himself like this. He himself has taken all these kinds of medications, but he's an expert cardiologist, and you have to go to him. Will you still take his advice? Yeah. You don't do as he does. Does that make him still an expert in the field? Yes. But he's not taking his own advice. That's the problem. It's kind of like Jesus saying to the people, do as the Pharisees say, not as they do. Follow the teachings. They're teaching you, okay? They're teaching you the morals, they're teaching you this. But when you see them, they're not practicing what they preach. You do as they say, but not as they do. You go to an oncologist, cancer, right? And then you see him, and you see all kinds of habits, all kinds of bad habits. But he is the expert oncologist, he has been known to cure people of cancer, or at least relieve them, etc. He's still an expert oncologist. You still, listen to his advice. You see, there's a difference. There's a difference. Okay? So, sometimes when people say, how do you know that? You haven't been there and done that. Well, there are times when you have to listen to expert advice, even if the person themselves are not following their own advice. It's important to know the difference. Okay. Now, there's all these biblical passages here that tells you where it is a sin. It's described as a sin, okay? And many things listed, as let's go through the Bible. And we've dealt with that already. I just need you to know that sometimes the Lord, in order to teach us, will let us experience some things as a good parent, right? Remember when your kids won't listen to you? Don't touch that, it's hot. what do? They go anyway. And then they get hurt and then they cry, they come running to you. Some of us cannot learn lessons easily, right? We like the hard lessons. Some of us have to experience something to learn our lesson. Some of us are fine. Mom or dad says no, then we're not going to go there. But some of us, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to see. I'm going to try it. Some of us need those. Yeah. Sometimes the Lord allows it. You're so hard-hearted. Why He allowed divorce in Moses' time? People were so hard-hearted. God hates divorce. He allowed it. Moses allowed it because people were just so hard. Meaning, they won't listen. They want to learn the hard way. Fine, experiences. He lets you wallow in your sin sometimes to teach you a lesson. You see how this hurts you? Now come here, I want to heal you. Let's get out of here together. But He will let you wallow in that for a while to teach you a lesson. And when you're at the pit, there's no way to look but up. When you're at the bottom, there's no other way to look but up. And that's Him waiting for you, right? Sometimes He has to allow that. Some of us are so hard-hearted, so hard-headed. Yeah? So He has to allow that, okay? And at the bottom there, the wrath of God is revealed. I mean, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, you already know that. I think we're living in worse times than Sodom and Gomorrah.
So I had my hand up for a while.
You what?
I had my hand up for a while.
Oh,
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
No,
because I'm not
it's
looking
fine.
there.
I wanted to touch base with what you were saying about, if you go to a cardiologist that has a bunch of indicators that he's not a very good cardiologist. Even in the passage we read last time, it said, look, I think it was look to me as an example as well, kind of the gist of it. And that touches exactly what Ray said, that's why it's so important for us to be catechized and to know why, right? Because every single time when it comes to either conversion or talking about Christianity at all, the topic of, well, what's the church's stance on homosexuality? Well, making the distinction of homosexual activity is no different from a sin perspective than any other sexual sin. So it was a sticking point for me when I was back into investigating and doing all that kind of stuff of saying, I feel a pull to come home, but I had preconceived notions. The misinformation is most certainly out there, and when I looked and really read into it and say, okay, well, what's wrong with it? Okay, well, boiling it down, and thankfully with the marriage prep classes, they tell you exactly what that is for. So anything that is not this is inherently sinful.
Yeah.
So people will try to make it look, oh, well, it's a stance against these people. Again, it's not. It's not about the people. It's about the actions.
That's right.
And but what Ray said, I wanted to say it as well, I guess.
Yeah, just how that in the church. My niece that's a nun, or they were saying Simon and Jude, they don't even wear habits, those type of nuns. And we had a really interesting discussion regarding that. And she pretty much said the mantra where, they expect people not to be able to have a comeback for it. Well, love is love is love is love. Well, no, there isn't. You remember Father Cassell? He did a homily one time on that, on the different types of love. And, you basically have empathetic, sympathetic, conjugal, and one of them on
Filial.
brains in my adolescence, so it's hard for me to pick stuff up. However, and basically, if you look at those type of loves, all four of those, five of them, correct me, that one there has to be there in order for it to be a true union. And the only way you can have that true union is a man and a woman.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it was designed. They complement each other. I mean, even your anatomy speaks it, okay? You had somebody, oh, okay.
And I think it's also really important for us to acknowledge that we all commit sexual sins or have been tempted to. And those are they're super shameful. It's very shameful to tell somebody or to experience those kind of sins. And that's I think that's the enemy a little
Mhm.
bit,
Yeah.
trying to keep you from getting better,
Yep.
healing from those wounds, or talking to your husband or your wife, because like, that's the person you really don't want to talk to when you have those kind
Yeah.
of urges,
Yeah.
is that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that we have those same sins,
Mhm.
and to not make it seem like you're bad,
Yeah.
but I'm awesome, and I don't have any of these problems.
No, totally false. Totally false. Everyone's a sinner in some degree, varied degrees. You had your hand up, my dear.
It was kind of about what he said. It's also about, like, truly loving that person the way that they were meant to be. And so what you want for them is for them to be happy.
Yeah.
And the happiest they'll be is living a sin-free life. So
Mhm.
I've explained it to some people like that,
Yeah.
and that obviously is more in their wheelhouse, because it goes with like love is love is love.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, well, this is true love,
Yeah.
higher than your love.
Exactly. The perfect love. And we have, and I know several, really, they're very promiscuous anyway. If they start acting on it, the truth is, it's not really one, just two partners. They have, I don't know if it's spoken or unspoken, but they have a freedom to have other partners. It's never just, it's not monogamous, okay? And that's why it's self-destructive, because that's when the diseases come. I mean, their life expectancy, if they're active in that lifestyle, is very, very low. Very, very low. So if you really love someone, you didn't want them to go there, because it's self-destruct. Every sin, no matter how little affects the whole body, we don't want our brothers and sisters to be destroying themselves. And a lot of times, it's really not having the education, not having the guidance, or a lot of, past, they were sexually abused, right? There's always a bad past that drove them, to this solution. But it's not true happiness, you're right. It is not true love either. We told you in the past, true love is being able to tell someone the truth, lovingly, with charity. But a lot of it is painful. The truth really hurts, especially if there's nothing this person knows. They were growing up thinking that's the right thing, because they were encouraged, right? They were encouraged and raised that way. So it's very hard to break through, but that's when the miracle is needed. Because of our own, sometimes we can't do it. We can't help fully.
My brother-in-law is trying to, quote unquote, actually had the operation to present himself as a earmuffs.
Earmuffs.
And, it's ironic to see the reactions of the families. And when even what it causes within the family, and you hear that he's happy, he's always happy, and this is making him happy, and you bring up facts lovingly, instead of you're not a bad person with it, and I've always said, I equate that group as being the bunch of drunk people sitting in the bar on Christmas Eve and swearing they'd be no other place
Yeah.
but there at that time,
Yeah.
And, it's just sad because of the destructiveness that it causes to the families, and it's just odd, because you talk to that person, and there's two people, before and after, and they're two separate
Yeah.
people in that body. And when all you can do is just pray. And
Yeah.
pray.
Well, it's important, I think, that we call God the Father, right? And in that relationship, we're blessed with having our family units to mirror the Trinity.
Yeah.
If you let your child do whatever they wanted, eat whenever they wanted, they wouldn't live very long. Because children have absolutely no survival instincts.
Yeah.
We are his children. We have no survival instincts for our own soul. We do, I want to go do that, it's going to feel good. But we don't understand the damage, which is really, that's the sin, right? It's damaging the relationship between you and God. And God's telling you don't do those things, not because he wants to limit you or anything like that, because he understands, and he's telling you this is bad for you in ways you cannot understand. And having that conversation and explaining sin that way has got people to be less defensive when, say, it's like, the church teaches that that's sinful. It's bad. Yes, it's bad, but this is why it's bad.
This is what. And you are up against, the whole world. Right now, anyway, it's very hard, I'm telling you, it's getting younger and younger, 2 moms and 2 dads are accepted. Not even that, they're forced on. We have teachers, and it's not just here, but all other states, they are really coming up with this. The administration is now forcing them to teach the little ones that it has to be accepted. They're forced to have material, books. They have to have material that embraces all the other genders. They are required now. There's a lot of teachers that are in a great dilemma because they don't approve of this, but now what? They have to teach it or make it available. We're listening to Catholic radio, and this is a dilemma of a lot of teachers because some of these schools now are forcing them to, you have to teach it, it has to be accepted, and these are what? First graders and kindergartners.
Well,
They have to have material.
I find it interesting that there's a correlation between public schools pushing kind of societal norms as opposed to just raw education and the prevalence of charter and private schools. When I was going to school, private schools were like what the rich kids went to, or the Catholics.
And there was one.
Yeah.
And there was one, right. Now, there's a charter school in every
Yeah.
corner, and you can go to private school all you want because there are people, there are teachers and there are parents that say, I don't want my kids learning that.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna have to unteach them.
Yeah.
I got work. I'm paying the teacher to teach. I don't want them to teach them crazy things.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying that you have to only teach creationism or the kind of view of the world, but there's a difference between teaching what Darwin researched and teaching that family units come in all sizes and they're all okay and everything's acceptable, and you have to accept it, otherwise you're a monster.
I know, you're called what? Bigots and hate. You are haters.
It's horrible to say.
Deplorable. But that's why there's also a huge movement, and it's been going on obviously, but it's now the homeschooling movement. People have really opted. And you know what? Very good, because we have products of homeschools nowadays. They're the doctors and they're the scientists now. Contrary to what used to be said, that they're not being taught to be sociable and they are behind. Actually, they're the ones that excelled in college and universities.
They're taught what matters.
The products of homeschooling.
Well, and there's a lot of really, really good support groups out there now. A friend of mine, his wife homeschools, and like a few times a week they meet with other kids, they go to the park, they do field trips to science center. I mean, a better educational experience than I had when I was in elementary school.
No, it's true.
These kids are learning really good things.
It's true. They have so much material nowadays, and it's true. So thank God that there are alternatives like that. And so what's sad is the universities that say Catholic in their name, right? And they're not. That's the sad part. But you know what, though? In the face of all these things, the Lord has a solution. And we have the or not famous, we have so many movements in the church. We have so many youth movements even. They are being raised by the church right now, by God right now in several places, but we don't read about them. All we read are this stuff. Still, I told you last week, I'm giving you all the material, kind of like a summary of things, because there's so many things out there. You could pull up, all the material you could find in the authentic sources. I'm warning you gotta have authentic sources. But because you need to be conversant, you need to be educated, because you are, from now on, or you've been doing this already, you have to be the light. You have to be the salt in the world, okay? What you learn, now you can't keep it to yourself. You have to go and spread the good news, but you gotta supplement it, because the 2 hours here every Thursday is really just scratching the surface. I gotta admit that to you. It's scratching the surface, but I wanted you to, all these things in your binder are a good springboard. You have to know something about the topic, okay? So you're not sitting there and everybody's for the culture. In that round table, 6 of them are all advocating these things, and you're the only one that has a different worldview. you have to be conversant, or at least you have to know something about these topics. It's not enough to be, I got my sacraments, I'm Catholic, now I'm gonna sit down and be persecuted because Aurora said I have to be able to expect to be crucified. Not these times, brother. You gotta be able to stand up and hold this up, not go like this. It's me and Jesus, I'm fine. No, he says go. He says go. You're on a mission. You're gonna get baptized, you're gonna be commissioned. You're commissioned, okay? You gotta spread this. You gotta invite more people to be crucified. Okay? Yes.
He sends you out.
He sends you out. That's what it means. Go. You know, he sends you out. So I just wanted you to, you know, be that. Okay. Let's take a break, stretch break and all that, and then we'll come back.